Again, my name is Charlene Margot, co-founder of nonprofit The Parent Venture. We're delighted to have with us today Stephen McCall and Megan Lamb from eBike Sense, who will be talking to you about e-bike safety, what every parent needs to know. Take it away, Megan and Stephen.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are excited to be here. Charlene gave us such a great introduction. I don't feel like I need to say much more. However, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Megan Lamb. I'm the founder of eBike Sense. I started this program a little over 2 years ago. A little bit again about my background. I was a PE teacher for 25 years. I was a LA County lifeguard. I was a competitive triathlete for 15 years. So I spent many, many miles on the road cycling with traffic and cars and learning how to ride defensively. My biggest job is I have a senior in high school. I cannot believe he is a senior, and this will be his last year here at home. What really got this going for me is I was in the same boat as a lot of you. My son wanted an e-bike about 4 years ago, and I was very apprehensive about getting him an e-bike. So I started looking around locally for e-bike safety training, and I couldn't find anything. So I decided to launch my own program. And now I do it privately. I work with school districts and as well as some law enforcement agencies. So it's been very exciting and rewarding. So I'll pass it over to Stephen.
Thank you, Megan. My background is in marketing and partnerships, working in the creative and marketing industry. However, I was fortunate enough to serve as a school board president in Hermosa Beach. And during that time, it was when we noticed the huge growth in e-bikes. And as a school district, we wanted to make sure that we were getting ahead of that through education and in partnership with our police, serving our community to make sure that our children were able to get to and from school safely. I also have two kids. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler, both of whom have e-bikes and ride e-bikes. So I think first and foremost, we can relate to whatever stage you're at, whether you're a parent who has a kid looking to get an e-bike, or they have an e-bike and you're looking for a few more resources. We hope that what we'll talk you through this evening will be of good use to you, and we look forward to getting into it.
So tonight we are going to quickly do a little more introduction about eBike Sense, our in-person safety training program. We're going to talk a little more as to what Stephen just spoke about, the journey of thinking about buying an e-bike to buying the e-bike and the important things you need to think about once you have the e-bike. Quick disclaimer, the information shared in this presentation is intended for general guidance. Every family is unique and local laws and regulations will vary. Parents and guardians are encouraged to research thoroughly, follow applicable laws, and make the decisions they feel are best and safest for their children.
And I'll just add that part of the reason of having that maybe up front is that so much is changing quite quickly. So even though we're sort of doing this here in September 2025, if you're coming to this resource on the web or at a later stage, cities and regulations, they are changing, and we'll actually give you some pointers and links to help navigate that. But I think it is important just having that up front and say that we're here for you.
A little bit about my program and my curriculum. I think I've developed a very comprehensive in-person safety training program for young e-bike riders. As an educator, I know that in-person learning is most effective. It's the most effective ways for kids to grasp new information. Along with that, my 15 years of cycling have also taught me that immediate feedback and correction are crucial for e-bike safety. We start in the classroom where students can ask questions and discuss unexpected situations they've encountered, leading to deeper understanding of road safety. I also get a lot of stories I then use for the next time I'm teaching students to share and learn from as well, which has been really valuable and effective and impactful. We ensure students have a clear understanding of traffic laws and local ordinances. For example, one of the most common misconceptions I find is that students aren't aware that they have the same rights and responsibilities as a car driver. They can actually get a ticket on a bike. Um, and so it's really interesting to talk about that and for them to get that understanding. And it's not only the responsibility of keeping themselves safe, but also the community as well. While it's important to teach kids what to do, the real challenge is teaching them how to act safely and instinctively in a dynamic traffic environment. So our curriculum focuses on developing split-second decision-making, anticipation, and defensive thinking that go beyond just the rules of the road. It's one thing to learn the rules of the road, it's another thing to transfer it on the road while you're riding with cars. Sorry, Stephen, I was still on that, but all's good. Then we head outside and we do a bike helmet check. I can't say how valuable this piece is. I'm finding I've taught over, I think we've trained, eBike Sense has trained over 2,000 kids to this date, and about 50% of the kids that we're seeing have a loose helmet, improperly fitted helmet, or loose brakes, which is highly dangerous. So this in-person, hands-on piece really helps me educate them how to not only adjust their helmets, make sure it's properly fitted, but stay on their maintenance and their brakes. Then we actually have them get on their bikes where we transfer the skills. I have a set of specific e-bike specific safety drills that I have found transfer beautifully to the road. One of them is a scanning drill. A lot of kids have trouble controlling their bikes, and it's vital they can look behind them for traffic and still hold a straight line so they don't veer into traffic or hit a parked car or something like that. And then we do an emergency stop drill that's very impactful for those riders that have a loose brake or maybe are only using one brake. These bikes are heavier and harder to stop, and many kids can't stop where they need to. So they realize, wow, if a car came out of nowhere, that wouldn't be good. They're not going to be able to control and stop their bike where they need to. And then privately, our instructors actually take kids on the road and transfer the skills to work on safe routes to school or personalized routes that they frequently will be riding. And that really is, really get to transfer the skills where our instructors can take them through stoplights and stop signs and gives us an opportunity not only to demonstrate, but also follow them and see what decision making they're doing on the road. And like I mentioned, we're excited. We've trained to this date over 2,000 kids locally here in Southern California. We're branching out to Orange County as well as Northern Cal and now San Mateo County, which is really exciting for us. Riders on the rise. Before I talk about this slide, I'd like to take a quick poll. If you could go in and we want to know how many of you have actually ridden an e-bike. If you could take a moment to just put that in the chat, that would be great. I mean, that's why we're here tonight. We're here tonight because the increase of e-bike usage. And unfortunately, with the increase of the e-bikes on the road, there's been an increase in accidents and kids riding recklessly and irresponsible. While they provide a lot of fun and independence, and you don't have to take your child as much, navigate getting them to soccer practice, etc., gets more cars off the road, with that comes danger. As you know, they're faster. So I think everybody knows an e-bike goes faster. And I like to ask students, why is an e-bike more dangerous than a regular bike? What makes them dangerous? Clearly, they say they go faster. So what does that mean? That means the faster you go, if something happens, the worse the impact will be. They're also heavier. Because they're heavier, they're faster, they have a throttle. I'm finding a lot of kids are having trouble controlling their bike. That's why it's really important that you also get a bike that's properly fitted to your child and make sure they can control that bike. I often see kids in my drills who are already riding in the road near cars and they're not controlling their bike very well. Throttles presents a whole nother danger. Throttles get sticky, they get glitchy. I tell kids, if something's wrong with your e-bike, they are a different beast. You need to let mom and dad know. You need to get it into the shop. The sobering reality, the accident rate for 10 to 15-year-olds is 5 times higher than any other age group. So there's a higher chance of traumatic brain injury or even worse. Check out your local laws. Again, nearby, Marin County is just piloting a new program. I think we have the link here, correct? If you'd like to check that out. Again, highly recommend you stay on top of your local laws and ordinances and what's going on with e-bikes because it's ever changing. This was actually a student that I taught last year. He was a private student, and I went to his house, did the classroom portion, did the bike helmet check. I found he was wearing his helmet, which was great, but the buckle was very loose down to here. So when I went like this, it just kind of flopped off his head. And so I was like, hey, you know, wearing a loose helmet is just like almost not wearing a helmet. If something happens, your helmet's going to move. And literally a week later, he got in his first accident. And the fire chief indeed said that the helmet did save his life in that instance. E-bike essentials. So what I recommend to parents, I recommend talk to your kids before you're even buying the e-bike. Educate yourself on the different classifications of e-bikes before you even buy the e-bike. You've made a decision to buy the e-bike. What are the boundaries you're going to set with your child? Are they allowed to ride anywhere? Are there certain streets they shouldn't ride on? How are you going to educate them not only on the rules of the road, but how to transfer those skills best to the road? Defensive riding, we talk about that a lot. Car drivers are not looking out for us. That's the biggest thing I tell kids. They're more distracted than ever. They're on their phones. They're not looking for us. You have to be aware at all times. Even when you're entering a crosswalk, sadly, it's not always safe. The bike helmet maintenance. I cannot reiterate enough. Buy the helmet, but go if you're not sure how to properly fit a helmet, go ask the local bike shop, Google it, watch a YouTube video. Make sure your child's helmet is properly fitted. They're going to grow. They may outgrow their helmet. So you've got to stay up on that, constant reminders. They could loosen on their own. You never want a helmet to loosen on your own. Again, planning the routes ahead before they're going to ride somewhere. What's the safest route to school? They're going to do a new route. A to B, what's the safest routes they can do? Can they avoid busy streets? Do they need to ride on the sidewalk a little bit, etc.?
Okay. Another little poll, if you wouldn't mind just putting in the chat on the Zoom chat. Just we're curious what age your child or children are at. It just might give us a frame of reference as we talk through this. If you're open to it, just let us know the age or the year that they're in, whether it's middle school, high school, or what have you. While you're doing that, and thank you for indulging us. This is now sort of the stage, okay, you're getting the ask. And sort of that's great. Like on some level, parents giving independence. It might be because kids have friends also getting a bike. It might be because age is an important factor here, and whether they are a proficient cyclist to start off with. Have they already been using a regular bicycle to get to school? These are all important factors to consider, as well as your local laws, as Megan had mentioned, school programs, whether you have access to training in person, etc. Schools will always publish the Safe Routes to School on the website. But also other factors, factors such as weather, riding in late in the winter. These are all things to consider as you sort of navigate this. But we're here for you, and the next few slides should help illuminate on a few factors. Okay, we're starting perhaps with the maybe the more complicated thing first, which is buying an e-bike in California actually has a number of different classifications. You might just assume, oh, it's an e-bike is an e-bike. Well, actually, there are some important differences. So there are three main classifications of e-bike. The first one, referred to as a Class 1 e-bike, can go up to 20 miles per hour. It is pedal assist only. There's no age limit on that type of e-bike. And children, or if you're under 18, you need to wear a helmet. And those Class 1 bikes have the same access as regular bikes. So, check your local laws. Class 1 bikes, that's a Class 1. Class 2 e-bikes also go up to 20 miles per hour. The key difference here is that they have a pedal assist as well as a throttle assist mode. So that's where there's a throttle on the handlebars and they're able to use that. Now then, with Class 2 e-bikes, age limits may apply. We mentioned about Marin County, San Diego, there's also a pilot. Just be aware that different localities are considering, depending on a number of different factors weighing into this. Similarly, wearing a helmet, and they also have regular bike access. And then there's Class 3 e-bikes. Now these go notably faster. They go up to 28 miles per hour. They are pedal assist. They do have an age limit. You need to be 16 or over to use them. There is a helmet requirement, as well as they have restricted use. So quite often, because of their higher speeds, and again, check your local laws, they may be restricted. So these are the three different classifications. When talking about parents and children, really we're keying in on Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes. But there's also one other notable classification. It's what we would refer to as an e-moto. Now, these are not e-bikes, but it's important to know that these are not e-bikes. These are typically off-road vehicles. They are considered street illegal. They will not have pedals. They will not, you will not sort of just see they have footrest, but they don't have pedals. And that's sort of a key way to know that these are intended for a very different use. Now, if you were to want to have one of these and you were old enough, you had a driving license and able to do that, you would need to get the vehicle permitted and have a registration and so forth. So for the purposes of this evening, we're going to just note that these e-motos exist. When you're a parent educating yourself about the different classifications, know that you're primarily thinking about Class 1 and Class 2s. Okay, so with that kind of myriad of classifications, and that was a lot of information, Stephen, to take in. What do I do? How do I choose? Well, really, it comes down to what's the age of your child, where are they riding, and do they need this pedal throttle assist? Ideally, if they can ride a regular bike, that's great. If they need, certain assistance, I know quite often when kids get to different ages, they've got to carry different things, whether that's increased books or laptops or things like that. And so sometimes that's helpful to have a different bike, and different bikes will manufacturers come in different shapes and sizes. So the key factors here to consider are really, what is the age of your child? What is the size? Really important to go and try these bikes in person, making sure that they are age appropriate, that they are going to be mature enough to have the particular bike, the experience to ride it. And also be aware that some bikes come with quite interesting technology. So some bikes, parents are able to limit the speed, so they don't have to go 20 miles an hour. In fact, my younger son actually gets limited to a much slower speed. And, as he gets older, I'll increase that speed, and only I have a parent access code. So those are sort of some interesting things as you get to look at different types of e-bikes and what's right for your child and your family. But again, a couple of things I'm going to re-emphasize. Please be aware of these street illegal e-motos, particularly getting, on road, they're illegal. And then there's a reason why beware tampering is emphasized, is because a lot of these popular bikes, many class 2 in particular e-bikes, can be adapted. They can be adapted to go perhaps more than 20 miles per hour. And, that's not for us to get into on this. Really, you can Google it, you can YouTube. If you get a particular brand and model you like as a parent, it's good to just do your due diligence on that. Do you have access codes and things that mean that you can prevent any sort of tampering, but not just digital tampering, but also physical tampering? Some children, well, Megan, would you talk to sort of some of the other ways that adaptions can happen?
Yeah, I mean, again, parents, you got to educate yourself and know that bikes can be altered. I've showed up to students' homes, unbeknownst to the parents, they've switched their brakes and not done a great job. And that's an indicator of doing wheelies and tricks sometimes. However, they've altered their bikes to go faster. Their parents thought it was set at 20. They figured out a way to get it over 30 without their parents knowing. I can't tell you all the ins and outs, so it's really important you do your due diligence on that. I'm telling kids now, you're so lucky you can ride a bike that goes 20 miles an hour. That is plenty fast. So again, yeah, it's just more education, staying on top of that.
I will say that it's quite almost alarming at how easy some of these tampering and adaptations are. Literally just a couple of minutes sometimes. And I think hoping that manufacturers are doing more to prevent this and keep them street legal, but we just definitely wanted you to be aware. Okay, so once you buy that e-bike, e-bike Sense would obviously recommend in-person learning makes e-bike sense if you hadn't got that already. There is also online training available, some great tools out there, and hoping that you can then take that knowledge base and transfer it to the road, and would recommend that you ride with your kids and make sure that they have those skills. The safe routes to school, look online. They will be published by your school district. Be aware of local laws. Some cities are restricting class 2 e-bikes, so I mentioned that. Often municipal codes on riding in parks, maybe pedestrian rideways. I believe Burlingame has an ordinance in certain areas. So these are things to be aware of. I would also, having that conversation about setting certain boundaries. Maybe you sort of give them a geo fence, or not from this street to this street or this city area. These bikes can get sort of across good distances. So maybe there are certain roads they should be steering away from. Checking in on where they are riding. Are they allowed to be riding after dark? Etc. That sort of thing, not wearing earpods or listening to music or other things. And Maya mentioned it, the continual reminders, keep communicating. I love setting little reminders to myself as a parent. We all know that kids can sometimes, how was your day? Well, getting information from your kid is not always the easiest. And you'll be surprised, these bikes are heavy. Depending on the hills in your area, how they're being ridden, the brakes need constant attention. So you may want to sort of go and check them 3 to 6 months, but again, making sure that you've got those constant reminders for maintenance. There's a little thumbnail here as well. I'll just mention it here, which is Megan and e-bike Sense. Once you go through our course, we have a little parent-kid contract or pledge, if you like. And that sort of is a nice way of, I think, keeping everyone honest. Sometimes families might have that for cell phone usage, So it's a similar sort of principle. Number of safety and security tips. First of all, helmets. Depending on the type of e-bike, the classification, you'll want to make sure that you've got as much protection as possible. This one referenced here is so that it has the side protection. You want sort of multi-directional impact protection system is a great thing to look out for. There's a lot of great safety standards, certifications. I believe there's one, a Dutch certification, which is great, NTA 8776, and Virginia Tech has another type of classification. So do your research, get the helmet that's right, but also it fits good. As Megan mentioned, it's most critical that they can tighten it, they keep it secure, and that they have the visibility and as well as the protection. Make sure you register your e-bike. These are expensive, all bikes will have registration codes in them. That's the thumbnail there. You can then possibly register with your city or police. There's also Project 529 is a great website where you can upload the information of your registration details, and then if the bike were to go missing, you can hopefully track it down that way. Lights, e-bikes will come with lights. Make sure your kids know how to put them on if they are allowed to travel after dark, riding in the dark. Making sure that they're visible at all times is absolutely key. Similarly with things like clothing and shoes, want to make sure that they have as much protection as possible, making sure that they're not using flip-flops, that if they need that reflective gear, riding at night, etc. Locks, e-bikes are expensive, so think about getting the best possible security. It's an additional expense. These things are expensive, but there are good U-locks, Z-locks. I think that's one of them there where it sort of opens up like a Z chain, or heavy duty chains. And talk to your kids about where they can secure their e-bikes. Ideally making sure that it's in visible places. Sometimes cities will have cameras and things like that. So just sort of making sure that they're aware of where and how to lock them up. You could also attach a tracker. AirTags or tiles can be hidden on e-bikes, and that's sometimes a great way if e-bikes do get stolen to immediately try and sort of get them. There are even accessories such as bells and things that you can hide them in, or inside seats and things like that. So obviously do where safe and possible. And then there's a great location app. Life 360 has differing levels, but it's really great to be able to track, not only track your kids. If you've got tracking available through their cell phone, that's good, but sometimes there's a lag. And Life 360 has a really great thing that you can not only track in real time, but with history and speed. So that's a great way of knowing then, oh, you can see where they've been, how fast they're driving, and if they're going over that 20 miles an hour, which would be illegal. Last thing would be on battery. Batteries to e-bikes, really that's the most expensive thing on the e-bike. So make sure you do read the manufacturer guidance. It's really important. E-bikes and the technology that goes into them, make sure they're in a safe space. Make sure you stop when they are fully charged. There's lots of good guidance around that. The last thing you want is any sort of dangerous fires that have happened with e-bike batteries. Okay, Megan.
Okay, the 411. We've talked about a lot. Just to kind of piggyback off the helmets again, you got to make sure it's the proper fit. Some kids are wearing full-face helmets. However, that does give you more protection, clearly. But I find some kids can't turn their head to look behind them for traffic. So again, there's a lot of make sure it properly fits. Can they even manage turn their head with a full-faced helmet? There are MIPS, MIPS. Those are helmets. The kid can pick out the style. I believe they provide the best protection for a regular bike helmet right now. So again, that's something you can Google. As far as bike fit, I just want to reiterate how important it is. We can recommend a brand, but it's really important that you go take your child to a local bike shop or an e-bike shop and have them get on the bike and make sure their feet aren't, they're wobbly when they go to stop. I've seen kids who can't even touch the ground, making it really, really dangerous. Um, the throttle, pedal assist mode, class 1, 2, what's right for your child based on their age, based on even, are they able to go transfer these skills to the road to ride in cars? Are they ready for that? Do they need a throttle? Is pedal assist enough? The ABC bike check, please help them stay on top of their brakes. Not only that, go to the local bike shop, learn how to do the ABC bike check, check the air, check the brakes, check the chain. But most importantly, is the B the brakes? When they start to loosen, they need to tell mom and dad, hey, my brakes are getting loose. They need to be adjusted. Have that constant communication going. A lot of kids don't even know there's actually a tube in the tire. They think the tire holds the air. These are all just great learning things you can do prior to even buying the e-bike. Learn these things. And then I always tell kids, there's great local bike shops. Get to know those guys. Oftentimes, kids can ride into these bike shops if it's convenient, and they'll put in they'll put air in their tires and tighten their brakes for free. And a bike does need to go in every 3 to 6 months because you have brake pads, the braking mechanism that helps stop your bikes, and those wear thin. So a bike really needs to go to a bike shop for a full-blown maintenance at least every 6 months. So again, staying on top of that. Um, Next. Being a predictable writer is something that I talk about in my classroom portion. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's one thing I don't cover in my classroom portion, whether it's riding with traffic. Should I take a lane? Should I squash over to the right? Is that safe? Should I take a sidewalk? Um, how to be respectful, how to keep you on e-bikes here before there's more laws, all that. But being a predictable rider is super important, not only to keep you safer riding with cars, to keep the community safer. We as drivers don't want to run into you and hurt anyone as well. So what does that mean, being a predictable rider? That means riding in a straight line, making your intentions clear. Signaling, I say keep it simple, right and left. Some kids have learned, the bike hand signals, but oftentimes car drivers don't know what that is. They never cycled on the road. Where it's very important, a kid makes his intentions clear with a right and left turn, is if they are navigating a neighborhood riding in traffic with cars and they're going to turn right or left, there's no stop sign, we slow into turns. You should let a car know you're going to be slowing into a turn, especially if you're taking a left and there's oncoming traffic and you may actually have to stop in the road. A kid has been rear-ended because he wasn't being predictable and signaling when he took a left. Double riding. I'd rather your child be on their own e-bike than on the back of a friend's bike, to be honest. It makes them heavier and harder to control. A lot of kids are getting hurt double riding. Usually it's the back rider. The front rider's the responsible one, helmets and everything. Typically it's the back rider. They don't know what's coming up. They're barely hanging on. However, there was a girl locally where we live who got in a serious accident last year, taking her friend around because a truck came out of nowhere and she couldn't control the bike as well, because her friend was on the back. We talk about tricks and wheelies. A lot of kids are getting hurt doing tricks and wheelies in traffic. It's not predictable. It's really giving e-bikers a bad rap, and I can see why. And it's also causing chain reactions. We as drivers are trying to get around you. I tell kids there's bad drivers, there's nervous drivers. Do you think they're going to do good around a kid who's swerving or popping wheelies in traffic? And again, a lot of kids are getting hurt. And there's been some car accidents because people are trying to not hurt them and they've run into other cars. So, being a predictable, respectful rider in the community, not only to keep your child safe, but the community safe as a whole.
I'm just going to maybe also
Go
further
ahead.
clarify on double riding, because this is sort of a particular hot button. Just because there is an extended seat on an e-bike doesn't mean that actually even that bike is sort of a banana seat is
Correct.
allowed. It needs to be a separate seat with its own seat post. And both rider and passenger need helmets. So it's not like, oh, just the rider, the person riding the e-bike, powering the e-bike is the one then with the helmet. No, they both need helmets and whatever. But again, these are getting into the specific details of California law, and maybe you've got local laws or whatever else, or just parent contracts, which my parent contract with my children is no, you're not allowed to, and you're not allowed to get on the back of a friend's e-bike either. That just makes me feel safer. There is also liability and insurance issues and other factors that we can get into, but as Megan says, I think it's just safer and easier.
And where we live, 2 of the cities do have local e-bike ordinances, and one of them is you have to have an extra seat and pegs, or you will get a ticket here locally where we live in 2 of the cities. So just reiterating rules of the road, again, I cover, I believe, because I cycled on the road and I taught kids, I cover everything I feel that is valuable that they can transfer to the road. Same rights and responsibilities as drivers. Sidewalks and crosswalks, those are huge topics we also discuss in class. Sidewalks are dangerous. Just because you're taking a sidewalk, there's poles, there's driveways. People aren't looking for you. Kids have been injured on sidewalks, sadly, because they're going too fast. And luckily, a couple of them didn't actually fly in the actual busy road. So you have to navigate those carefully. Crosswalks, I mean, parents, you've taken crosswalks as a pedestrian. You push the button, it says walk or it turns green. There's still cars trying to cut you off. You can't just assume and go. And again, I mentioned taking a lane versus a bike lane, riding off to the right when you shouldn't even be in that road. And just again, the local laws, keep up on the local laws in California, locally, all the above. They're ever changing.
They are ever changing, which actually here, I'm going to just put this slide up. And if you are wanting to take a screenshot or sort of QR code some of these links, there are some really great resources here. San Mateo County have a student services sort of packet, an e-bike handbook. I believe that's in the link in the chat here, as well as will be posted. There's also California Highway Patrol has their resource. The People for Bikes, great organization that details state local laws, and then obviously you can go, or you can just call your non-emergency line if you want to sort of figure out what is the situation with your local situation. And there's some other good YouTube videos and so forth. So lots of good resources. And this is sort of maybe another factor. It was mentioned at the beginning in terms of how eBike Sense is approaching safer streets. We believe that in-person education is best, and some schools are now starting to put in place sticker programs and helping parents with this education, as is this this webinar, and making sure that things are good there. Also, police, they want to make sure that they're serving their communities, keeping their communities safe. So there's lots of good things happening, as well as cities. Cities are having to navigate how to have those safe routes to school, but also signage and mobility now that there's so many different sort of modalities. So keep informed. And I think that brings us to the end with special thanks to our partners this evening who helped us bring all of this information to you. And with that, I think we're going to switch over to some Q&A.
Well, thank you, Stephen and Megan, for a great presentation. And thank you, everybody, for the amazing chat and all the comments and all the questions. So Stephen and Megan, we have a lot of questions. We're just going to start and see how fast we can go, okay?
Okay, sure.
You're all good. I'm just going to go down the list, so bear with me. First of all, what is the minimum wattage and speed limit allowed to ride on streets without a motorbike permit?
Well, if we go back to that classifications, I think the important thing is that you're focusing on the class 1 and class 2 e-bikes. A lot of e-bikes do have increased wattage. I believe it's 750 is
Yes.
the amount. But I believe now also those vehicles are required to be labeled. Sometimes if you're buying a pre-owned or certified e-bike, sometimes some of the older models may be difficult to tell what kind of classification this is. Just know that if it has a throttle, that's a class 2 e-bike, and you want to make sure that it's not going more than 20 miles an hour.
Okay, again, we have 20.
And really quick, the wattage is important because I have seen parents have a bike that goes illegally too fast and set it to 20, still thinking that was safe, and it is not if the wattage is above the 750.
Okay, thank you, Megan and Stephen. Here's something that a parent brought up we didn't know about. She says, most parents are not aware that their homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance excludes liability for e-bikes. It's a completely separate policy is often needed to protect their family's liability. If they're getting on an e-bike, they need to call their insurance agent.
Good advice.
Yeah, great advice. Yeah, I think that's there are options out there for you. I actually don't have those specific insurance companies, but you can Google that.
Okay, thank you. This parent asks, is there a sweet spot, age, or grade for teaching e-bike safety?
Oh, I think you need to know your child. You know if they're ready. Are they able to make those quick decisions? What's their reaction time going to be? How did they ride a regular bike much first? I highly recommend that you've had a biking experience before they just transfer it to an e-bike. I think it's very dependent on your child. Are they ready? Can they fit on an e-bike correctly? Are they going to be able to handle the speed, control their bike, transfer it to the road with cars? I don't want to say a specific age because we're seeing students very young to teenage. I don't know if I recommend elementary and, you know.
I mean, I remember, Megan, that the year my kids started driving was the least favorite year of being a parent. This
Wow.
would be really scary with middle school kids.
It is. I mean, and I appreciate, not all parents, can take the time, or, it's not always possible to sort of cycle with them over the years to sort of get them to that stage. But it is important because one of the things that they're noticing from the data is that a lot of children are skipping even the fundamentals. Have they been cycling to school? Do they have that proficiency on a bicycle? They may know how to ride. I get that they can balance on a bike, but are they proficient at cycling around their community? Do they know how to navigate their community on a bicycle? That's important because then when you're jumping up to these bikes that do have increased power, it's important that they're proficient sort of at the basics level. And often schools will do a great job, safe routes to school and education in schools, so that in elementary they're learning just the basics of how to cross a street, and then it goes up to, okay, now you're navigating on a bicycle and how does the bicycle work, and now it's e-bikes, and so it does fit in. And then you also are dealing sometimes with older kids, high schoolers, whatever, and it's like I've got one, so I can, I know the eye roll when Dad, I know how to ride a bike, Well, these are different beasts, and it's important for parents to have caution. And mine weren't allowed to do it until not only had they done all the testing, whatever else, but I rode with them on those routes and made sure that they were comfortable. And it wasn't until that I sort of then, we allowed them to sort of.
That's really good advice, Stephen. Thank you. All right, here's a question. How do you address out-of-class modified e-bikes that exceed 20 miles an hour and have a throttle?
How would we address that?
They're not.
I mean,
they're not
I
legal.
mean, yeah, I mean,
Not legal.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not legal. Education, parent education, know what you're buying, know if it can be modified.
Yeah, it's really critical. I mean, and if it has been modified or it can be modified, you may want to go and get it returned at the retailer, or certainly have it returned, or that's really where it comes down to. Hence the disclaimer at the front. This is parents, you're in control here, and this is sort of your liability in terms of putting your child on these vehicles. So it's
And I
really
have had, excuse me, really quick, Stephen, I've had parents who have bought a legal bike and I've educated them because unbeknownst to them, they didn't educate themselves. They didn't know what they were buying and they took it back and got a legal bike. And it's having that conversation with their child.
Okay, so for example, another related question is, are the adaptive bikes obvious to the naked eye, and could a school administrator know by looking?
no,
No.
not easily. And really it's quite that's kind of the gray area. And we all know, I'm sort of want to be empathetic to schools. It's schools, school boards, administrators, they want their kids to get safely to and from home to school. But it's, this is now kind of an unfunded mandate to schools and to police. This is a new classification of vehicle code that they're having to navigate, and constant legislation is now sort of changing and trying to catch up to things in ways that previously e-bikes weren't classified on the actual on the chassis in terms of whether it was a class 1, 2, or 3 or what have you. And so it makes it really hard. You've got to start then entering in codes and things to figure out. So I'm afraid that's why be informed, do lots of research, ask the retailer, check, and sort of do your best to keep informed.
And locally, many cities are impounding the street illegal e-motos. That's
Yes.
becoming more common, thankfully.
Okay, here's a question. I'm going to try to get as much of it right as I can. It's kind of long, but it's important.
Mhm.
The writer's asking about kids in the Bay Area riding e-bikes who are not disabled in power-assisted open space lands. So if they're approached by a police officer, they may say, yes, I am disabled. That may not be the truth. Is there any way to help make sure that those kids have like a placard or something that identifies them if they truly are disabled?
I think we're sort of getting into, it's a great question. We're sort of getting into the territory of that's a question to your local police, or law enforcement area. Police will definitely want to help you. If you're the parent and you have a child, and they're needing some sort of assistance or navigating exactly where they can or can't go, that is down to the local level, and that's really for you to sort of manage that. And things are changing as well, and that's why, say month to month, there's a lot of things happening at the state level, with these different pilots happening in different regions and cities. And, every local area is dealing with things in different ways. So do your best, call your local administrators and try and get some answers.
Okay, thank you both. So parent here asks, what if a bike looks like an e-moto, Mac Fox, and has pedals? What class is that considered? We were told the bike was street legal and given a sticker, so it's identifiable.
Say that one more time, sorry.
The question appears to be, what if a bike looks like an e-moto, Mac Fox, and has pedals? What class is that considered? We were told it was street legal, and then we were given a sticker, so it's identifiable.
I mean, I don't know that brand, Stephen, and I would have to
I don't either, but
Google
we
it.
are hearing of these instances, and I think this is the scary thing, which is that, just because it's got pedals on doesn't mean it's legal. No, in quite the opposite. And really, I don't want to say don't trust your local retailer that you're buying things from, but they will perhaps, kids want to be on great bikes, and retailers will want to sell great bikes, and great bikes, are quite expensive. And so, really this is where take your time, do your research, look up the classifications. All the websites should have all the information in terms of the wattage and the power and that sort of stuff. And if you're not sure, just Google it or use AI to sort of figure out whether this is something that you really should be putting your kid on.
Okay. All right, we still got lots, but let's see what we can do in
Okay.
5 minutes, okay? What do you recommend about having a phone holder on the front of the bike?
I do not recommend having a phone holder. It's just another distraction for a child who needs to be aware that car drivers are not always looking out for us. and
So
to
where do you want those phones, Megan, when they're riding?
I prefer them. I tell parents they should be put away, you know, and know they're
I've seen
and know
kids
they're
riding bikes on their
and
phone.
it's very dangerous. It's not only dangerous, again, going back to them, but us as drivers having to watch out now for not only a kid on an e-biker, but a kid that might veer into traffic because they're on their phone. Highly dangerous. Don't recommend it. Map the routes out ahead. They should know where they're going without their phone.
We got around quite easily, right, before cell phones as humans, and they shouldn't be needing to navigate to different areas of the city or wherever else. They should be navigating to areas that they shouldn't be needing Google Maps or whatever else. So heed that advice. I'd also say one little thing that the only good thing is that if their battery on their phone goes dead, they are able to pull over to the side, and often some manufacturers actually have an ability for you to sort of plug in your phone to the battery, and they could power up while they're sort of at a stop. So that's kind of a good thing. But other than that, keep it away, just like at school and stuff.
Okay, so the laws have not quite caught up with all of that yet.
I don't think it's a law thing. I think it's just, do you want distractions for your young rider
Right.
on a bike? No,
Yeah.
they shouldn't.
They're-
They shouldn't be listening to earpods. They shouldn't have, like, this is just common sense. So don't, no, at least it would be our recommendation not to.
All right, here's a good question, especially relevant here in the Bay Area with lots of hiking trails. Parent asks, how about trail etiquette, rules of the road guidelines that hang about for new e-bikes at e-bike shops, or some kind of flyers to let kids know what is okay and not okay?
Well, I think it just comes down to being respectful riders, in your community. And I mean, even when you're on a sidewalk, I educate kids if you have to take a sidewalk, they're meant for pedestrians. Pedestrians have the right of way. You should call out to people if you're passing them. You should call out if you're in a bike lane, letting the rider ahead of you or the pedestrian ahead of you that you will be passing them, whether it's on your left or excuse me. If you're on a trail with two-way traffic, that provides a whole nother danger of when do you pull over? You're going downhill. What are things you need to watch out for? Twists and turns, all the above, it's all relative.
I'd say there's lots of great going through the training, e-bike sense. There's also great online, sure. But as a parent, cycle with them, stop at stop signs, use the etiquette, model good behavior. There's a reason, you don't want to be doing, California rolls or whatever else. Like if you're modeling good behavior, you're wearing your helmet, you're calling out, you're doing these things, take them on these trails. That's great. Yes, there could be resources. Know that some communities, are at different stages. And, maybe those sort of resources haven't yet made it in terms of pamphlets or websites or whatever else. But, I'd say parents try and do as much of this as you feel needs to be modeled for your child.
Okay, so again, we're going to see what we can do here in the last minute. Here's a good question. What are some resources for helping us choose a bike?
I highly personally, I recommend you find a great local shop that sells multiple different brands of e-bikes that your child can try so they can make sure it's the proper fit. If you find one that, is a good fit or a few, you do your research on the e-bike itself, the quality of the e-bike and some of the history of that manufacturer.
Yeah. And if, ideally, depending on, again, their circumstances, we gave that chart of the flow and age and the other factors. If they can be riding they need that assistance, class 1, great, go with class 1. Know that class 2s, there are some adaptation, considerations, dangers, etc. And that's where you've just as a parent got to navigate that by doing your research on what is the latest type manufacturer. Okay, my son or daughter's interested in X. Okay, figure out, where is that up to? So
And
things are
also
changing.
with the extra seat, I don't recommend you buy a bike with an extra seat. I think it's safer for them to be controlling their own bike on their own.
Yeah.
We would really love to see kids in helmets and shoes, not unhelmeted and in flip-flops.
Yeah.
So would I.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, Stephen and Megan, we have come to the end of our hour, but that was really tremendous. And again, the audience, we still have scores of questions, but everybody, this video will be available soon. We thank you both for all the information from eBike Sense. Thank you, everyone. I wish we could have gotten to every question. We did our best, but please do write to us. And again, look for the e-bike guide posted from San Mateo County Office of Education in the chat. That's a really good one. We will also include this link when we mail out the video link to this program, hopefully by this weekend. So thank you, both of you, Megan Lamb and Stephen McCall, for a great program. Thank you, Teresa Baez Kelly from the San Mateo County Office of Ed. Safe routes to school. Take care, everybody. Wear those helmets. We hope to see you again soon.
Stay on the brakes.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you so much.